I rescued an injured wolf. Then the ruthless Alpha King revealed I'm his destined queen. I never meant to see it. The moment that would destroy everything I thought I knew about the man I served. The Alpha King who ruled the Northern Territories with an iron fist and a heart everyone believed was made of stone. My name is Alara Ashwood, and for 3 years I've been nothing more than a shadow in the Crystal Moon Palace. Welcome to Rose and Retribution. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. One of dozens of servants who clean the marble floors, who polish the silver, who exist only to serve the most powerful alpha in existence. King Alaric Blackthorn doesn't even know my name. To him, I'm just another faceless Omega who keeps his palace running. That's exactly how I wanted it. The girl who disappeared. I came here running from a past that would kill me if it ever caught up. My pack, the Shadowridge clan, was destroyed 3 years ago in what everyone called an accident. A fire that consumed everything, left no survivors except me. But I know the truth. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. And the killer is still out there, still searching for the one witness who escaped. So I hide in plain sight, just another servant, just another nobody. I keep my head down, do my work, and pray that anonymity will keep me alive. Tonight, that protection shattered. Breaking protocol. It was past midnight when I realized I'd left my cleaning supplies in the throne room. A stupid mistake, but one I needed to fix before the head housekeeper discovered it in the morning. Mrs. Thornwick had already warned me twice about carelessness. A third strike would mean dismissal, and I couldn't afford to lose this position. This palace, for all its cold grandeur, was the safest place I'd found in 3 years. The corridors were dark and empty as I made my way through the east wing. The guards had completed their rounds, and most of the palace staff were asleep in the servants' quarters. I moved quickly, my soft footsteps barely making a sound on the polished marble. The throne room doors were slightly ajar when I reached them. Strange. They should have been locked. I hesitated, every survival instinct telling me to turn back, but I could see my bucket and mop just inside the entrance. 30 seconds to grab them and leave. What could possibly happen? The impossible truth. I slipped through the doors and froze. The throne room wasn't empty. King Alaric stood before the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, his back to me, his powerful frame silhouetted against the moonlight. But he wasn't alone. Someone knelt before him, head bowed in submission. A woman dressed in the robes of the royal council. "Please," the woman begged, her voice breaking. "Please, my king. I didn't mean to fail you. Give me another chance." "You had your chance, Counselor Ravenna." Alaric's voice was cold, emotionless. "You swore an oath to protect this kingdom's secrets. Instead, you sold information to our enemies. Did you really think I wouldn't discover your betrayal? I should have left. Should have backed out silently and pretended I'd never witnessed this." But something in his voice, something dark and ancient, held me frozen in place. "I'll do anything," Ravenna pleaded. "Please, I have children, a family. You should have thought of them before you committed treason. What happened next would haunt me forever." Alaric raised his hand, and power erupted from his palm. Not the normal alpha dominance I'd seen him use to command his warriors. This was something else entirely. Something wrong. The air itself seemed to tear apart, reality splitting like fabric as shadows poured from his hand, wrapping around the counselor like living things. Ravenna screamed, but the sound cut off abruptly as the shadows consumed her. When they receded seconds later, she was gone. Completely. Not dead. Not unconscious. Simply erased, as if she had never existed at all. The discovery. I must have made a sound. A gasp. A whimper. Something that gave me away because Alaric spun around, his silver eyes locking onto me with predatory intensity. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, we stared at each other. Me, a terrified Omega servant who had just witnessed something impossible. Him, the Alpha King who had just revealed a power that shouldn't exist. "How long have you been standing there?" His voice was perfectly calm, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was deciding whether to let me live or to erase me the same way he'd erased Counselor Ravenna. I just came for my cleaning supplies. My voice shook so badly I could barely form words. I didn't see anything. I swear I didn't see. Don't insult my intelligence with lies. He moved toward me with that liquid grace that all-powerful alphas possessed. But there was something else in his movement now. Something predatory and ancient. You saw exactly what happened. The question is, what am I going to do about it? I backed toward the door, my survival instincts finally kicking in. Please, I won't tell anyone. I'll leave the palace tonight. You'll never see me again. And where exactly would you go, Alara Ashwood? My blood turned to ice. He knew my name. He knew who I was. Trapped. You think I don't know every person who lives in my palace? Alaric continued, still moving closer. You think I haven't noticed the Omega servant who keeps her head down, who avoids eye contact, who's been hiding here for 3 years? You knew. The words came out as barely more than a whisper. I know everything that happens in my kingdom, including the fact that you're the only survivor of the Shadowridge massacre, the witness everyone's been searching for. My legs nearly gave out. If he'd known all this time, then why didn't you turn me in? I demanded, fear making me bold. There's a bounty on my head. You could have collected it at any time. Something flickered in Alaric's silver eyes. An emotion I couldn't name. Because whoever destroyed your pack is the same person who's been working to destabilize my kingdom. We have a common enemy, Alara. I've been waiting to see if you remembered anything useful. Waiting to see if you'd eventually be worth the risk of keeping you alive. And now, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Now that I've seen your secret? Alaric stopped just inches away from me. So close I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Smell the pine and winter storm scent that clung to his skin. His hand came up to grip my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. Now, he said softly, dangerously, you're going to help me destroy the people who killed your pack. And in return, I'm going to teach you how to use the same power that just terrified you so badly. What? I tried to jerk away, but his grip was iron. I don't have any power. I'm just an Omega. You're not just anything. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I felt electricity spark between us. Did you really think it was coincidence that you survived that fire? That you've managed to hide for 3 years when trained hunters have been searching for you? You have power, Alara. The same ancient magic that runs through my bloodline. You just don't know how to access it yet. That's impossible. I would know if I had. The night your pack died. What do you remember? The question hit me like a physical blow. I'd spent 3 years trying to forget that night, trying to bury the memories so deep they couldn't hurt me anymore. Fire, screaming, running. And how did you escape a fire that consumed every other wolf in your pack? Alaric pressed. How did you survive when witnesses say the flames were hot enough to melt stone? I remembered running through the burning pack house, remembered the fire closing in on all sides, remembered thinking I was going to die. And then, shadows? I whispered, the memory suddenly crystal clear. I ran through shadows. The fire couldn't touch me because I wasn't completely there. Because you phased, Alaric confirmed. The same ability I just used. The power to step between reality and the shadow realm. It's called void walking, and it's been extinct for over 1,000 years. Until now. The proposal. My mind was reeling, trying to process this information. Why are you telling me this? Why not just kill me to protect your secret? Because I need you. His hand moved from my chin to cup my face, and the tenderness of the gesture was somehow more frightening than his earlier coldness. For 3 years, I've been searching for another Void Walker, someone who could help me track down the traitors in my court, who could move through the palace unseen, who could be my eyes and ears where even I cannot go. And you expect me to just trust you? To become your spy? I expect you to be smart enough to recognize opportunity when it presents itself. Alaric's silver eyes burned with intensity. You're being hunted, Alara. Your face is on wanted posters across 5 territories. Without my protection, you'll be dead within a month. But if you work with me, if you let me train you to control your power, you'll have the strength to destroy everyone who hurt you. At what cost? I demanded. What do you want in return? His smile was dark and dangerous. Everything. Your loyalty, your service, your complete obedience. You'll live in my private quarters where I can monitor your training. You'll go where I send you, do what I command, become the weapon I need you to be. So I trade one prison for another. You trade hiding for power, fear for revenge, running for fighting back. His other hand came up to frame my face, holding me captive with more than just physical strength. I'm offering you something no one else can, Elara. The chance to become strong enough that you'll never have to hide again. I should have said no. Should have fought, screamed, tried to escape. But looking into Alaric's eyes, feeling the pull of something that might have been the mate bond or might have been simple survival instinct, I knew I was already trapped. One condition, I heard myself say. You help me find whoever destroyed my pack. You help me get revenge. Done. His smile widened. We'll start your training tomorrow at dawn. Tonight, you move your belongings to the royal wing. From this moment forward, you're no longer a servant. You're my personal asset, my secret weapon. What do I tell the other servants? Nothing. They'll be told you've been dismissed for theft. Let them gossip and speculate. It's better if everyone thinks you're gone. Alaric stepped back, releasing me, but the imprint of his touch lingered on my skin like a brand. Go pack your things. My guards will escort you to your new quarters within the hour. And Elara? His voice stopped me as I turned toward the door. Don't even think about running. You might be able to walk through shadows, but I can hunt through them. There's nowhere you can hide that I won't find you. I left the throne room on shaking legs, my mind spinning with everything that had just happened. In the span of 10 minutes, my entire life had changed. I'd gone from invisible servant to the Alpha King's secret weapon. From hiding to training for war. The girl who had spent 3 years trying to disappear had just been pulled into the light by the most dangerous man in the kingdom. I'd spent the night in a room that was larger than the entire servants' dormitory I'd shared with 15 other Omegas. Silk sheets, carved furniture, a private bathroom with running hot water. Luxuries I hadn't experienced since before my pack's destruction. But I couldn't enjoy any of it. Every sound made me jump, convinced that Alaric had changed his mind and was coming to eliminate me after all. When the knock came at 5 in the morning, I was already dressed and waiting. The woman who entered wasn't what I expected. She was tall and elegant, with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that assessed me with sharp intelligence. Her scent marked her as a high-ranking beta, and the way she moved spoke of combat training and deadly skill. I'm Captain Lyra Thornhart, head of the King's personal guard, she said without preamble. I'll be overseeing your training. The King wants to see you in the private training hall immediately. Follow me. First lesson. The private training hall was hidden deep in the palace's lower levels, accessible only through a series of warded doors that responded to Alaric's power signature. When we finally reached it, I understood why it needed to be so secure. The room was massive, with walls covered in strange symbols that pulsed with dark energy. The floor was marked with circles and sigils I didn't recognize, and the ceiling disappeared into shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Alaric stood in the center of it all, dressed in simple black training clothes that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. When he turned to look at me, I felt that same electric pull from the night before, stronger now in the intimate space. Good. You're on time. He dismissed Captain Lyra with a gesture, and suddenly we were alone. Tell me what you felt when you phased through the fire 3 years ago. I struggled to find words for something I'd spent 3 years trying to forget. It was like falling through water. Everything went cold and dark, and the world became distant, muffled. The Shadow Realm, Alaric confirmed. It exists parallel to our reality, separated by the thinnest of veils. Void walkers can cross that veil at will, moving through shadows like other wolves move through doors. But it's dangerous if you don't know how to control it. Stay too long, and the shadows will consume you. Lose your anchor to reality, and you'll be trapped there forever. He moved closer, and I had to resist the urge to back away. I'm going to teach you to control your transitions, to phase deliberately instead of accidentally. But first, you need to understand what you're dealing with. Alaric held out his hand, and shadows pooled in his palm like liquid darkness. Watch closely. The bond. He pressed his hand against my chest, directly over my heart, and the world exploded. Suddenly, I wasn't standing in the training hall. I was floating in an endless void, surrounded by shadows that whispered and called my name. I could feel them pulling at me, trying to drag me deeper into the darkness. Terror seized me, and I screamed, "Focus on my voice." Alaric's words cut through the panic like a lifeline. "I'm your anchor. As long as you can hear me, you can find your way back." I latched onto his voice, using it to ground myself, and slowly the training hall came back into focus. But something had changed. I could still feel the shadows, still sense the void lurking just beneath reality's surface. And I could feel something else too, a connection to Alaric that hadn't been there before, like a golden thread linking my heart to his, pulsing with shared power and something deeper, more primal. "What did you do to me?" I gasped, pulling away from him. His expression was unreadable. "I created a tether between us. It's the only way to safely train a new Void Walker. As long as that connection exists, you can't get lost in the shadows. But it means I'll always be able to sense where you are, what you're feeling. And you'll sense the same from me." "You bonded us?" Horror and something disturbingly like excitement warred in my chest. "Without asking? Would you have agreed if I had asked?" Alaric challenged. "This is what's required, Ilara. Either you trust me to train you properly, or you leave now and take your chances with whatever hunters are looking for you. Choose." I wanted to be angry, wanted to rage at him for violating my autonomy. But the practical part of my brain, the part that had kept me alive for 3 years, recognized the truth in his words. I needed this training, needed his protection. And if I was being honest with myself, some small part of me wanted that connection. Wanted to matter to someone again after 3 years of being nobody. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth. "Teach me." Forbidden attraction. The training was brutal. For hours, Alaric pushed me to phase in and out of the shadow realm, to maintain control while navigating the void, to use the shadows as a weapon instead of a refuge. Every time I lost focus, every time I panicked, he was there, his voice pulling me back, his power steadying mine. And with every exercise, I became more aware of him, of the way he moved, the way he smelled, the way his silver eyes tracked my every motion. The tether between us amplified everything, making me hyper-aware of his proximity, his approval, his rare moments of satisfaction when I succeeded. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. "Enough," Alaric finally called when I was dripping with sweat and shaking with exhaustion. "You've done well for your first session. Tomorrow we'll work on maintaining phase for longer periods." I collapsed onto one of the benches lining the wall, my muscles screaming in protest. "How long did it take you to master this?" "Years." He sat down beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. "But I didn't have a teacher. I had to figure it out on my own, and nearly killed myself a dozen times in the process." "You'll progress faster." "Because of the tether?" "Because you're stronger than you realize." His hand came to rest on my knee, and heat flooded through me at the contact. "Most wolves would have broken during their first phase training. You just endured 6 hours without complaint." "I complained plenty in my head," I admitted, too tired to guard my words. Alaric laughed, and the sound transformed his face from coldly handsome to breathtakingly beautiful. "I know. I can feel your frustration through the bond. Also your determination, your fear, your—" He stopped abruptly, his expression shifting to something darker. "My what?" I pressed, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. His silver eyes met mine, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. "Your attraction. I can feel that too, Ilara. Every time your heart races when I touch you. Every time you look at me and feel that pull. The tether doesn't lie. Crossing lines. I should have pulled away, should have put distance between us. But I was tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of denying what I felt. Then you know I'm terrified of you, I said quietly, but also drawn to you in ways that don't make sense. You killed someone right in front of me last night, but when you touch me, all I can think about is how much I want. I cut myself off, horrified at what I'd almost confessed. How much you want me to do it again? Alaric finished for me. His hand moved from my knee to my face, cupping my jaw with a gentleness that contradicted his deadly reputation. You're not the only one feeling this, Elara. That tether goes both ways. I feel your fear, but I also feel your fire, your strength, your desperate need to be seen, to be valued, to be something more than just a survivor. This is wrong, I whispered, even as I leaned into his touch. You're the Alpha King. I'm supposed to be your weapon, not my what? My lover? My mate. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I shuddered. The moon goddess has a twisted sense of humor, doesn't she? Binding me to the one person in this kingdom who has every reason to hate me. I don't hate you. The confession spilled out before I could stop it. I should, but I don't. Why not? Alaric's face was inches from mine now, his breath warm against my lips. I'm using you, training you to be a spy, a killer. I've stolen your freedom and bound you to me with power you can't escape. Because you're the first person in 3 years who's made me feel alive again. I admitted, my voice breaking. Because you look at me like I matter. Like I'm more than just a victim or a fugitive. You see me, Alaric. Really see me. And that's worth more than freedom. The kiss, when it came, was inevitable. His lips claimed mine with a hunger that stole my breath, and I responded with equal desperation. 3 years of loneliness, of fear, of feeling like a ghost in my own life. It all burned away in the heat of his touch. The tether between us flared like wildfire, our powers intertwining until I couldn't tell where his shadows ended and mine began. When we finally broke apart, both panting, Alaric rested his forehead against mine. This complicates things. I know. If anyone discovers what you are, what we are to each other, it will make you a target. My enemies will use you to get to me. I'm already a target, I pointed out. At least now I'm a target who can fight back. His laugh was low and rough. True. But Elara, you need to understand something. I'm not a good man. The things I've done, the things I'm planning to do, they would horrify you if you knew the full extent. Whatever this is between us, it's built on darkness. Then we'll burn in it together, I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. I'm done running from darkness, Alaric. Maybe it's time I learned to embrace it. The betrayal. Over the next 3 weeks, my training intensified. Every morning I spent hours in the private hall, learning to control my power, to use the shadows as a weapon, to move through the palace unseen. Every afternoon, Alaric taught me politics and strategy, preparing me for the role I would play in uncovering his enemies. And every night we pretended the growing tension between us didn't exist. But the tether made that impossible. I felt his desire like a constant flame licking at my consciousness. Felt his frustration when duty pulled him away from me. Felt the war raging inside him between what he wanted and what he believed was right. And he felt everything I tried to hide. Captain Lyra noticed first. You're playing a dangerous game, girl, she warned me one evening after a particularly brutal combat training session. The king hasn't taken a mate in 30 years. There's a reason for that. What reason? I asked, curiosity overcoming caution. Because everyone he's ever loved has died. Lyra's expression was grim. His parents, his sister, his first advisor who was like a father to him. 28 years ago, he had a fiancée, Lady Seraphina Nightbloom. She was murdered 3 days before their wedding, killed by the same enemies he's still hunting. He's convinced himself that love is a weakness, that caring for someone gives his enemies power over him. Then why bond me to him? I demanded. Why create a connection that makes me a vulnerability? Because he's desperate. Lyra's words hit like a punch. The traitors in his court are growing bolder. 3 more counselors have been assassinated in the past year, all of them loyal to the king. He needs a void walker to infiltrate places his guards can't reach. He needs your power more than he fears the risk you represent. The words stung more than they should have. I'd started to believe I mattered to him beyond my usefulness. Started to think that what we shared was real. Lyra must have seen something in my expression because her voice softened. I'm not saying he doesn't care, girl. I've served Alaric for 15 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. But caring and loving are different things for a man like him. Don't mistake his need for something deeper. The mission. That night, Alaric summoned me to his private study. When I arrived, I found him standing at the window, tension radiating from every line of his body. "We have a problem," he said without preamble. "One of my spies reports that there's going to be a meeting tomorrow night. The traders in my court are gathering at the old Thornwick estate just outside the city. This is our chance to identify everyone involved. You want me to spy on them? I want you to phase into the meeting room and listen to everything they say. Record names, plans, anything we can use against them." He finally turned to face me, and I saw worry in his silver eyes. "This will be your first real mission. It's dangerous. If they detect you, if they have protections against shadow walking that we don't know about." "I'll be careful," I interrupted. "You've trained me well. I can do this." "I know you can." He crossed the room to stand in front of me, his hands coming up to frame my face. "But Alara, if something goes wrong, if you get trapped or injured, you use the tether to call me. Promise me you won't try to be a hero." "I promise." I covered his hands with mine. "But nothing's going to go wrong. You said it yourself. I'm stronger than I realize." "You are." He kissed me then, slow and deep, pouring all his unspoken emotions into the gesture. When he pulled back, his voice was rough. "Come back to me, Alara. Whatever you discover, whatever happens, come back to me." The revelation. The next night, I stood in the shadows outside the Thornwick estate, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. Through the windows, I could see figures gathering in what looked like a study. Rich wolves in expensive clothing, all wearing expressions of barely concealed satisfaction. Time to see what secrets they're hiding, I thought, reaching for the shadows. The phase was easier than it had ever been before. One moment I was standing outside, the next I was drifting through the walls like smoke, invisible and intangible. The shadow realm embraced me like an old friend, and I felt Alaric's steady presence through the tether, anchoring me to reality. I positioned myself in a corner of the study where I could see and hear everything without being detected. There were 7 wolves gathered around a large table covered in maps and documents. I recognized 4 of them from court functions, high-ranking nobles who had sworn loyalty to King Alaric. "The Void Walker is dead," one of them was saying, Lord Brennan, a trusted advisor. "Our source confirmed that the female who survived the Shadowridge massacre was killed 3 weeks ago in the Southern Territories." My blood ran cold. They thought I was dead. They were talking about me. "Excellent," another voice replied. This one I recognized instantly. Counselor Marcus Ashford, Alaric's second-in-command. The wolf who had advised the king for over 20 years. "That means King Alaric has no way to track our movements now. The void-walking bloodline ends with him." "What about the training sessions in the lower levels?" Lord Brennan asked. "My spy reports the king has been spending hours down there every day." Marcus smiled coldly. "Training himself to perfect his power. He knows we're closing in. He's preparing for war. Then we'd better move quickly." A woman spoke up, Lady Helena, who I'd served tea to dozens of times. "The assassination is scheduled for the winter solstice. That's only 2 weeks away. Everything must be in place by then." I nearly lost my grip on the shadows. Assassination. They were planning to kill Alaric. "The poison will be delivered during the solstice feast," Marcus continued. "I've arranged for it to be mixed into his private wine reserve. It's a slow-acting toxin that will mimic natural illness. By the time anyone realizes what's happened, he'll be too weak to fight back. And with the Void Walker bloodline dead, There will be no one to expose us before we seize control. What about his guards? Someone asked. Already bought or eliminated. Captain Lyra will be dealt with the night before the feast. Without her, the royal guard will be in chaos, unable to mount an effective defense. I'd heard enough. More than enough. I pulled back through the shadows, heading for the exit, my mind reeling with everything I'd learned. Alaric's most trusted advisor was the mastermind behind everything. The man he'd relied on for 20 years was planning his murder. But as I phased through the estate's outer wall, something went wrong. Pain exploded through my chest, sharp and vicious, and suddenly I was being yanked back into reality. I materialized in the estate's garden, gasping, and looked down to see a crossbow bolt protruding from my shoulder. "Well, well," a voice said from the darkness. "The dead girl walks. How interesting." Lord Brennan emerged from the shadows, another crossbow already loaded and aimed at my heart. I had a feeling our information was wrong. The king has been far too confident lately. Now I know why. I tried to phase again, but the bolt in my shoulder burned with some kind of anti-magic poison. My power stuttered and failed. Silver-tipped, blessed by a witch, and laced with Shadowbane extract, Brennan said conversationally. Specifically designed to prevent void walkers from escaping. "You're not going anywhere, little spy." Through the tether, I felt Alaric's sudden surge of alarm. He'd sensed my pain, my fear. He was coming for me. But would he arrive in time? Brennan's finger moved toward the crossbow's trigger, and I knew I was about to die. All I could think was that I'd failed. Failed to warn Alaric about Marcus's betrayal. Failed to save myself. Failed to become the weapon he needed me to be. And then the world exploded into shadows. Alaric materialized out of pure darkness, his power so intense that reality itself seemed to bend around him. The shadows that poured from his body weren't the controlled wisps I'd seen during training. They were torrents of living darkness, consuming everything in their path. Lord Brennan didn't even have time to scream. One moment he was standing there, crossbow aimed at my heart. The next, Alaric's shadows had wrapped around him like hungry serpents, lifting him off the ground. His weapon clattered to the earth as he clawed desperately at the darkness constricting his throat. "You shot her." Alaric's voice was cold enough to freeze hell itself. "You put Shadowbane in her blood. You hurt what's mine." "Your Majesty," Brennan gasped. "Please, I was only following." "Following orders?" Alaric moved closer, and I felt the full weight of his rage through the tether. It was terrifying and beautiful at once. "Whose orders, Lord Brennan? Speak quickly. Your life depends on it." "Marcus." The name burst from Brennan's lips. "Counselor Marcus Ashford. He's planning to poison you at the solstice feast. He's the one who destroyed the Shadowridge Pack. He's behind everything." Alaric's expression didn't change, but I felt his shock through our bond. The betrayal cut deep, deeper than any physical wound could. "How long?" The question came out as barely more than a whisper. 20 years, Brennan choked out. "Since Lady Seraphina's death. He's been planning this since then. You were supposed to die with her, but she stepped in front of the blade meant for you. Marcus has been trying to finish the job ever since." The truth revealed. I watched Alaric's face cycle through emotions. Shock, grief, rage, and finally a cold, deadly calm that was somehow more frightening than his earlier fury. Marcus killed Seraphina. It wasn't a question. My own advisor, my trusted friend, murdered my fiancée. "He didn't want you to produce an heir," Brennan gasped. "Didn't want your bloodline to continue. The void-walking power was supposed to die with you. But then the girl survived." His eyes flickered to me. "And he had to eliminate her too. The Shadowridge massacre." I breathed, pieces clicking into place. "My pack was destroyed because of me? Because of what I am. Because of what you could become," Alaric corrected, his shadows finally releasing Brennan, who collapsed to the ground wheezing. A threat to Marcus's plans. Another void walker who could expose his network of traitors. He turned to me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my chest ache. Guilt, self-recrimination, the weight of every death that had resulted from his advisor's treachery. All of this, he said quietly, is my fault. I trusted the wrong person. Let a viper into my inner circle. Your pack, Serafina, dozens of loyal servants and counselors, they all died because I was blind.
No.
I struggled to my feet despite the bolt still lodged in my shoulder, despite the poison burning through my veins. They died because Marcus Ashford is a monster, because he chose betrayal over loyalty. This isn't your fault, Alaric. Isn't it? His laugh was bitter. I prided myself on being perceptive, on seeing through deception. But I was so focused on external threats that I never looked at the enemy standing beside me. Removing the poison. We can assign blame later, I said through gritted teeth. Right now, I have Shadowbane poisoning my blood and a crossbow bolt in my shoulder. Unless you want me to die proving your point about trusting the wrong people, maybe focus on that. Alaric's expression shifted from self-recrimination to focused determination in an instant. He was beside me in a heartbeat, his hands hovering over the bolt protruding from my shoulder. This is going to hurt, he warned. Shadowbane prevents your natural healing. I'll have to pull it out manually and then use my power to purge the poison from your system. Just do it. I braced myself against a nearby tree.
Ives survived verse.
His silver eyes met mine. Not while bonded to me, you haven't. I'm going to feel every second of your pain, and you're going to feel my desperation to save you. The tether amplifies everything. Then we suffer together. I managed a weak smile. Isn't that what mates do? Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes at the word mates. But he didn't comment. Instead, he gripped the bolt firmly. On 3. 1. He yanked it out on 1, the bastard. The pain was white-hot agony that tore a scream from my throat. Through the tether, I felt Alaric's matching agony, his fury at causing me pain, his determination to fix this. His hands pressed against my wound, and shadows poured from his palms directly into my bloodstream. It felt like ice and fire fighting a war inside my veins. The Shadowbane poison resisted, clinging to my cells with vicious tenacity, but Alaric's power was relentless. He hunted down every trace of the toxin, burning it away with shadow fire that was somehow both gentle and ruthless. Stay with me, he murmured against my hair, holding me upright as my legs gave out. Just a little longer, Ilara. I've almost got it all. Through the pain and the healing, I felt something else. Love. Pure, desperate, terrified love flooding through the tether from him to me. All his careful walls, all his emotional distance. The crisis had shattered it completely, leaving his feelings bare and exposed. He loved me. The Alpha King who claimed he couldn't afford to love anyone loved me with a ferocity that took my breath away. There, he finally said, his voice rough. The poison's gone. Your natural healing should handle the rest. I looked down at my shoulder to see the wound already closing, pink new skin forming where the bolt had pierced through. The advantages of being a werewolf. Thank you, I whispered, turning in his arms to face him fully. And Alaric? I feel it too, through the bond. Everything you're trying not to say. His jaw clenched. Ilara, I love you too, I interrupted. And before you tell me all the reasons why this is impossible or dangerous or foolish, just know that I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing us. Despite everything. The confrontation. We need to get back to the palace, Alaric said after a long moment where he simply held me, his face buried in my hair. Marcus can't know that we've discovered his treachery. Not until we're ready to strike. What about him? I gestured to Lord Brennan, who was still collapsed on the ground, watching us with wide, fearful eyes. He's coming with us. Alaric's voice was cold as winter. He's going to tell me everything about Marcus's plans, every conspirator, every detail. And then he's going to help me set a trap. Alaric's shadows wrapped around Brennan like chains, and we phased back to the palace together, traveling through the shadow realm with a speed and ease that would have been impossible for me alone. When we materialized in the private training hall, Captain Lyra was waiting, her hand on her sword. "My king! I felt your alarm through." She stopped when she saw me, bloodied and supported by Alaric's arm. "What happened?" "Betrayal," Alaric said simply. "Marcus Ashford is the traitor we've been hunting. He's planning to poison me at the solstice feast and has been working against us for 20 years. To Lyra's credit, she didn't waste time with shock or disbelief. Her expression hardened, and her hand tightened on her weapon. "Orders. Lock down the palace. No one enters or leaves without my explicit permission. Arrest Marcus and bring him to the throne room. Do it quietly. I don't want the other conspirators to scatter before we can identify them all. And Lyra?" His voice dropped to something dangerous. "If he resists, you have my permission to use whatever force necessary. But I want him alive. I have questions that need answering."